Hi, I am here with my sister, Tracie Guy Decker. Yes, hyphen.
And I'm here with my sister, Emily Guy Birkin, no hyphen.
And together we are doing Lightbringers, where we illuminate the deeper meaning of the crime-solving devil TV show. And yes, we're totally overthinking it.
So overthinking it. Today we are overthinking episodes 215 and 216, Deceptive Little Parasite and God Johnson.
Yes, indeed we are.
Yeah.
Oh, these are two delightful episodes. They're delightful. So I wanted to start talking, and some of this is personal to me because I'm a mother to two sons who very much have that older brother, younger brother relationship. But the bookmarking of Deceptive Little Parasite, of Amenadiel hitting Lucifer in the face. And also there's the, like, Amenadiel's, well, let me try. And the goddess is saying, well, no, your brother's the Lightbringer. And you can see that like,
sort of, he like gets a little shorter. He gets a little shorter when she says that.
Because it's just like, and I'm the oldest. You see that sibling rivalry, and then he hits Lucifer to try to make him mad, and then Lucifer is like, all right, no, you try, I'm gonna kick you in the balls. And that boys quit it. Like, that felt very real. That felt very real to my life.
I don't want to overthink it, but is there another creature in your lap there?
This is the dude, Lebowski, aka the dude. We originally gave him a different name, but he was too lazy for it. And I have been out of town for a few days, so he's missed me. So this is why he's making an appearance, and he's probably going to show his rear end because he loves showing his best side when I'm on Zoom calls.
Cool.
So cool, good times. So we have that aspect of the brothers at the beginning of that episode, and I see that constantly. There is so much wrestling in my house, so much wrestling. And it's just like, I have said, I don't think that small boys, and I suspect it's probably true of sisters as well. I just don't observe it, but they're not actually, human children. They're a series of puppies in clothing. Like they're just, several puppies like in a trench coat. I don't know how it works. But then you also have the bookend of that episode when Lucifer is finally like feeling the pain of thinking that he had this real connection with Chloe and feeling like it's not real, and his overwhelming grief at it, which Tom Ellis acts the hell out of that scene with not a single word, and you feel that heartbreak. And some of it is that the goddess is not in a position to see him, but some of it is also just that Amenadiel truly loves Lucifer, and he sees that pain, and he sees him. He sees the whole human, or not human, divine, the whole person, and wants to protect him. And that aspect of the brotherhood really gets me too, because I see that as well. I'm thinking of, and this is not my finest moment as a parent, I'm going to, but so, the goddess for selfish reasons or self-preservation reasons is yelling at Lucifer, try harder. And I'd like to believe that if she'd seen his face, she wouldn't have done that. But it reminded me of my eldest, not exactly a stoic. He does not believe in suffering in silence. And he had an ear infection. And I know that those are intensely painful, but this child has cried wolf. Like he stubs his toe and he screams like he's lost a limb. Like, I'm not exaggerating. This child just oversells it. So I've lost a lot of the compassion, the maternal care that I would like to have for my children when they're in pain. And there was a day not that long ago when he opened the fridge and there was something on top of the fridge and it fell on top of his head. And I have no doubt that it hurt. But I had enough. And it's not that he screamed. It's that he screamed and then lay on the floor and screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed. And I was in the other room, I think it was in the bathroom or something like that, and like waiting it out, and it didn't finish. And I came out like, you know, with my hair had become snakes, and I was not the best mother I've ever been. And I said, will you stop, Skyron? And like, it's fine if it hurts, but stop indulging yourself this way. You know, just really A+ parenting, you know, like mother of the year. The award is in the mail on my way. Meanwhile, my little guy, his little brother, who is the bane of his existence, like who had been sitting beside him, kind of like rubbing his bigger brother's head, looked up at me and says, Mom, stop screaming at him. He's hurt. Which is what, like, oh my God, what a terrible parent I'm being. But it was almost exactly like this moment in the show, in that like I had to have my other son look at me and say like, stop this, stop doing it. Because and particularly my little guy is really close to me, and is one who's not going to, like, my big guy is the one who's gonna really have fun with that teenage rebellion. He's gonna be snarky and mean and not have any thought to the fact that I'm his mom. My little guy is the one who like is just like, no, don't do that, she's my mom. Like that's how he is. So for him to, on his brother's behalf, say, Mom, stop it. Well, first of all, it, you know, stopped me in my tracks. And secondly, it also like just reminded me of how people who can be at each other's throats constantly have each other's back when it really matters. So
yeah, and I DB Woodside plays it really subtly, but I think actually effectively, with just that hand on his shoulder, especially. And right now I'm not remembering the order, but in that same scene when the goddess touches Amenadiel's face and then tries to touch Lucifer's face, and he like pulls away from her. Lucifer does not pull away from Amenadiel when Amenadiel puts his hand on his shoulder to comfort him. Yeah. And I think that like it was subtle, but I appreciated it, and I think it resonated. Like it read as plausible and accurate. And like I, you know, there are moments in the show sometimes where I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, but that one wasn't one of them. Like that one just felt real.
Emotionally, it just really, it resonated. And it got to, I remember someone on Twitter at some point asked DB Woodside, like, what's your favorite aspect of, you know, being in this cast? And he's like, the brothers, the relationship between the brothers. And there's something about that sibling relationship. And I don't think that it's necessarily about like gender or you know, brothers or something like that, but you see it more often among male siblings than you do among like female siblings, or two female siblings, or non-binary or anything like that. But that like that at each other's throats but have each other's back thing. That like you know, like, you know, just I'm gonna hit you out of nowhere, here, you hold it, I'm gonna kick you right in the nuts. And like I just, when we had whatever scuffles we had, they were very rarely physical, as I can recall. I mean, I think some of that is just we kind of outgrew it younger, because that's girls often do, so they say. But some of it is just, that's just not how we interacted with each other. Yeah. But there's something about boys and brothers that like lasts into adulthood in a way that is just stupefying, because I don't understand it, but also so it's so resonant. It just, I love seeing it. I love seeing the depth of their caring for each other.
Yeah. So the other character I think that we get a little bit more of in Deceptive Little Parasite is Trixie. Yeah, we get to see Trixie a little bit more and see her relationship with Lucifer continue to develop, which I think is really interesting. Though, like one of the sort of overthinking it things in rewatching, like she introduces herself as Trixie Morningstar to the school folks, and then like we know that Chloe is like, the school knows that Chloe is her mom, clearly. And then Maze comes in as Chloe's current, I guess the school believes that Chloe and Lucifer are
like
divorced parents.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Are divorced.
And that Chloe is now with Maze.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, because there's that moment when the movement tutor, or whatever they called him, the PE teacher, says, yeah, her
a
dad,
box of hair.
yeah. But he says to the office that Trixie's dad brought her in, and
I love
Dan's
that.
like pretty sure he
didn't.
Like, which when I'm overthinking it, like I'm thinking, well, surely they said I'm like her dad, but then
like, I'm willing to give that the benefit of the doubt of like, well, for one thing, things are a little bit chaotic because I'm sure you can imagine the person who's in charge of all that kind of stuff.
Right. Just died unexpectedly. Yes. Right.
That's gonna make things like the whole process is gonna be a little bit less streamlined.
And so maybe like the left hand isn't talking to the right hand.
Yeah. And then as she's introducing herself, like that's like, she's like, it's other parents who she's introducing herself to, like the person who, like, I'm on the whatever committee, I don't remember the person who she introduced herself to, and who's just like, oh,
the woman who's like, I don't have time for a job.
Yeah, no, even the first one when but yes, like, oh, I wish I had time for a job. I'm like,
exceptional child,
exhausted mother. Who says that? That's not a saying. So, but even when she like checks in, like, I think that was a parent volunteer.
Right. Okay.
That's another aspect of it. So like, the parent volunteer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'm willing to buy that then. Yeah. I'm willing to buy that.
So it is interesting to see, this is the first time we see Chloe like feel intimidated.
Yeah.
Although it's also, as a parent, feels really understandable. Like, you walk into that and you're like, well, I mean, I like Lucifer's like, yeah, this school is weird and this case is boring. But yeah, let's talk about Trixie, about her opening up kind of randomly. Like, why?
She was invited to, but why she actually accepted the invitation? Yeah.
And you said something about a recent episode where like she like kind of, no, I want it now. And and Chloe's like, what is it? And she's like immediately spills it. I'm like, yeah, that's not how kids work. No. But I do think that there is something to like a kid who is like feeling overwhelmed about something about their parents and feeling like she can't talk to them because they're who she's worried about.
Yeah.
When she's in a place that feels safe and like she's with Lucifer, like I don't think that she would have done that without Lucifer being there. So I can see that being like a realistic emotionally, that she would open up.
It's plausible, at least. I don't know if it's realistic, but it's at least plausible.
It's more plausible. Yeah. And then even when she's like, I can tell you anything. Well, what I want to tell you is I want Lucifer to drive me to school. That actually felt like, oh, yep, that would be right where it goes. And you're like, like I'm wanting to open up with you, kiddo, and you want to hang out with my weird friend.
Yeah.
Who is going to let you drive his 1967 Corvette. What? You're 8. This is not okay. So yeah, that's and I appreciate that Trixie saw through the school. I mean, I have no doubt that the children at that school get a good education, but
there was a lot of pretense.
There's a lot of pretense there. And a lot of
performance.
Yeah. Like the mother who they end up interviewing, who like spills the beans that the PE teacher has something every night with the parents. That, like she's rubbing garden dirt on the root vegetables she buys at the grocery store. And like, I don't have any idea what Los Angeles public schools are like, but it's like, is this really what's going to be best for your kid. I don't know. This gets into my thing on like, I truly believe that for the most part, your kid is going to get a good education no matter where they are, no matter what school they're in, no matter how bad the school district. And I believe that because when I worked in the Boys and Girls Club in Columbus, Ohio, which is a very, very low income district with, like the battered old textbooks. I mean, all of the typical stuff. I had teachers showing up at the Boys and Girls Club because they knew that their students would be there to make sure that they got what they needed for education wise.
I think it is possible for your kid to get a good education wherever they go, regardless of the quality.
Well,
I don't think it's guaranteed.
Oh, no, not guaranteed or inevitable. But if you're a parent who is, it has more to do with the parent than
the parent's involvement is more indicative of the quality of the child's education than the actual.
Yes.
And
because there are horrible teachers everywhere and there are fantastic teachers everywhere.
Right.
And at some point,
and I think the data actually corroborate that parental involvement is more important than the actual metrics around a school.
But anyway,
right, I'm bringing us back to Lucifer now.
Back to Lucifer. That's just one of my bugaboos. So well, and then you do get that sanctimony thing. When you get like really good education and all of that. And really what it all is about class and privilege and money. Because the mom who's like, oh, I wish I had time for a job.
Right.
Like, who are you?
Right.
Like in Los Angeles.
I think it can be about all of those things. I think it also just gets into one is so insecure that they have to put down others in order to make themselves feel better, right?
Well,
because the whole debates about like shaming people for bottle feeding or for continuing to use the pacifier beyond a certain whatever point it is that we're currently saying is like all of those things aren't necessarily about class and privilege. Like I agree with you that in the show that was definitely what they were leaning on in this episode. They were leaning on class and privilege. But Sanctimommy is not only like that kind of mom shaming between moms is not only about class and privilege. I don't think.
Yes and no. I think that one of my theories is that as every generation moves forward in some way with feminism, where there and equal rights for people who have been marginalized, there's always steps forward, and then there is a backlash that appears to have nothing to do with it. And so things like shaming moms for leaving their kids in the car and doing things that our parents thought was completely normal, letting our kids walk home by themselves and be latchkey kids, all of that is like, oh, you want to have it all as you want to be a parent and have a career and do all of this. Great. You also have to make sure that you're watching your kid every moment of every single day, or else you're going to be judged. And there is some class and privilege in that, because the people who are most often to be judged that way, including with things like bottle feeding and pacifiers, are the parents who don't have the time to devote to things like breastfeeding if it's not going well, or weaning from a pacifier if you're sending a kid to daycare on a regular basis because you have to go to work. Those are things you need to have time to do, and time is a marker of class and privilege.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring us back again.
Of course, yeah. No, again, you keep hitting my soapboxes, and I just I want to climb on them. So, but actually, I do want to mention. So, I can't remember the actor's name. Eldon he played Eldon in the Cosby Show. It's Jeffrey something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm just thinking about the fact that he was embezzling the money because that entire school was all about pretense, prestige, how
he had to keep up with it.
Which is like, it should be like they espouse to be about like feelings and having these real connections with people, and yet nothing was real there. And that visual gag of like everyone dancing at Lux, and then you come to Lucifer reading that book about emotions, picture book, and he's like, I'm trying to figure out this inscrutable book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I love that.
Yeah, that's good.
So
And
yeah.
it was interesting too. I mean, I feel like this is one of the tropes of the series about the idea that the only way through it is through it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that like he came to at the end with Linda, and then the scene that you actually started us with, where he feels the depth of the grief and pain in order to try and ignite the sword. But that sort of the only way through is through feels like kind of like an undercurrent that comes up again and again and again in this show. So
that's something Dad used to say to me. I don't know if he ever said that to you. If there was something I needed to do and I didn't want to do it, he'd say, the only way around it is through it. I'm like, I really don't want to hear that, Dad. I'm 15. Can you hold off on the pithy sentiments? But now that I'm in my 40s, I'm like, yeah, there's definitely something to that.
Yeah.
That like once you let go of the idea that there's a shortcut, that there's another way around, that there's a different way of doing it, and just say like, okay, I just need to accept that it's not going to be fun, that I just have to do this, is kind of freeing in a way, even though you're not able to hear it when you're a teenager.
Yeah. So let's talk about God Johnson.
Yes.
It's funny. In this rewatch, I'm realizing like this is not one of the ones I return to regularly, and I'm not sure why, because it's a really great episode.
Great episode.
Like I think the guy, I don't know his name, but the actor who played God Johnson,
I meant to look it up and I forgot.
He did a great job.
He's fantastic.
And those bright blue eyes are just like goodness, just riveting. And
I'm not someone who likes, like, bearded men is not a thing for me, but like God Johnson is just like, wow. Yeah. He and Tricia Helfer go together, even though they don't go together.
Right. Right. And he just played it so relaxed.
Yes. Yeah.
Which like
it feels very divine in a way.
Yeah, kind of. There was something about it that just really, really worked. Yeah. And yeah. So God Johnson brings up some interesting things. We've talked about names before. And so the episode actually brings up some interesting points, overthinking it moments around names. He calls Lucifer Samael when he first meets him, which is a name which I, because of research like this, because of my overthinking it for Lightbringers, I've learned is a word that is avoided being said among Orthodox Jews. And so it's interesting that he calls him that, but then he changed his name to God, which
is not,
there's nothing divine about that
God's
word.
name. Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
It's so late as an English or German, sort of the sort of Germanic language,
where even though there are plenty of Jews who will write G-D rather than writing God, there are many, many like rabbis that I have met. And the reason why I feel comfortable doing it myself now don't, because it's just an English word. Even if you capitalize it and are referring to Hashem,
right?
It's just an English word.
Right. Right.
It's like a placeholder word in a way.
Exactly. And so it seems like there are a lot of other names that and I know the source text is a comic book and not actually, but I'm overthinking it.
So no, please.
It just seems unlikely that if it were in fact the divine or some emanation thereof, that that's the name that would have been chosen. I mean, it made for a good story on a television show, but when I'm overthinking it, that's not the name. Even like Hashem would have been more likely, which means literally the name in Hebrew, because humans are not supposed to pronounce the name, the 4-letter name. So, I mean, and they were, by not having God Johnson take that name, the 4-letter name, then they're avoiding like a major taboo in some religions.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. But
I will say though that having him choose the name God Johnson does makes it a hint to the fact that this is just a human being,
an emanation. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so like as a human being who's not a particularly religious human being.
Right.
So
right.
if it had been an Orthodox Jew or a Muslim or, you know, or a
then
devout
maybe they
Christian
would have chosen a different name. That's an interesting point.
Yeah. Whereas like this is just some guy who's, you know, not really religious, and has taken on whatever the emanation of his God, and so changes his name to what his understanding is.
Yeah, that actually does make some sense. I'm willing to follow you there.
Yeah.
And then the writers make an interesting choice that when Lucifer parent traps them, they like she calls him husband.
Mm-hmm.
Does he use a name? He doesn't, I don't think. I don't even think he uses wife. He says, "You're as lovely as the first day I saw you." But
now one thing, and I actually was going to bring that up. One thing that I appreciate is that they have created this convention that celestials refer to each other by their relationship. So like Lucifer and Amenadiel call each other brother. You know, when they meet with their sisters, they call them sister. And it happens multiple times so that it is not, and like the thing is, calling your brother is a little less weird to our ears than calling your husband. Like I don't say, "Hey husband," whereas like I'll say sister or something if I see you. They have set up this convention in a way for celestials, and it makes sense that the first versions of these relationships would use those titles in the same way that we will, like, you know, I'll call our aunts and uncles aunt and uncle, not just that, but with their name.
Yeah.
Even when I'm talking directly to them.
Yeah, I guess so. Although when Lucifer is becoming convinced that God Johnson actually is in some way his father, he says, "Dad." Like, I don't know, but again, it's a TV show. So I'm
what, like we're overthinking it or something?
Yeah, this is an I acknowledge I'm overthinking it, but it was interesting to me on this rewatch. I was like, "Ooh, I wonder if he uses her name. Like if he says Ashura ever, like, no,
we never hear
that name. No. So I think that's sort of that was an interesting overthinking it moment for me, that I enjoyed.
I would like to talk briefly about the scene of Lucifer and God Johnson escaping.
Yeah. In the slow motion with all the feathers and everything.
It is such a beautifully done shot that is like both like moving, in part because you see Lucifer and God Johnson moving in tandem, and you can understand why Lucifer, despite evidence to the contrary, is like, "This is my father." You know, like we're doing things like they duck like one of the thrown piece of underwear, like in tandem, and I have no idea how they choreographed it. It's mind-boggling, and the director, whose name I am blanking on, but the director does some of my favorite episodes of Lucifer. Just does an amazing job with not only like all of what's going on, because you can watch that scene over and over again and see something new each time. Like there's I don't know how I missed it, but there's an orderly who's got to be like 4.5 feet tall, and someone, like one of the patients, is holding him at bay with his hand.
I noticed that the one with the fire. He's got like something burning in one hand. He's holding I know that too. That was pretty funny.
And so like, you know, and all of the like the joy of that moment from all of the people in the I like what I appreciate about this episode, and I think there's one wrong note, which is when Lucifer says, "I love the mentally ill," and I'm like, that doesn't feel quite right. But otherwise, throughout the episode, they are really compassionate and careful with what the doctor, for one thing, the doctor seems like to be a complete mensch, the one who has a crush on Chloe. what a mensch. Like I wish he could have been a regular character. Maybe not a regular character because there's not enough there, but he was just a sweetheart. He clearly loved his work. He clearly cared about his patients. He had a sense of humor about what he did, and was able to not only be the job. There's so much there that it was like he's a fully rounded character who only had like 10 minutes of screen time. And that creates this really nice opening to be understanding of these people as individuals, which is exactly how he says it. He's like, I don't look at them as a DSM. They're people. And Lucifer, other than that one line, which is just like, don't think with you, is also, like he plays along with, like when he's playing cards with them when they don't have cards.
Deal me in and
deal me in. And when he sees the man with Tourette's, his like, oh, okay, you're one of those. It's just like, okay, I understand. And no issue with it. And like the encouraging them to do stuff. None of it is like, I mean, the fire could be dangerous, but like, I want to turn lights on and off. He's like, great, I love a rave. I mean, that sounds wonderful. I want the underwear. Great. Like that's not going to hurt anybody. Fling underwear to your heart's content. And I appreciate that, in part because I appreciate how the show as a whole handles mental health. And also just because it would be so easy with a murder set in a mental institution for it to be one of the patients to be the killer. And it was someone who had no mental illness whatsoever that we could tell. Clearly,
I mean, she was homicidal, so
yes, but able to get and maintain a job.
Clearly had a trauma survivor, but not processing it particularly helpfully. Yes.
And we don't know what her mother did. Nope. Like, no idea, if her mother truly was a bad mother, or if this is someone who had resentment for something that her mother couldn't control.
Right.
So, but yeah, that scene in particular with the feathers and the bell and the music underneath of it, and it's just lovely. The fact that Linda helps them escape using her own name, which we don't know quite yet, that gets to something I talked about early on, which is we talk about Lucifer says, like, I'm walking heroin, and it's nothing good can come of getting involved with me, and nothing bad particularly happened because she was involved with him sexually. But there was that point early on where he says to her, don't you want to help me, and like does the eye mojo. And she went from, that was the episode, she went from like lusting after him to wanting to help him as a patient. And I feel like this is the kind of, like, she does things that are very much against her ethical code in helping him get out, and her own personal, self-preservation because of that mojo.
I mean, she also knows now, and like, because she was freaking, like, should I have curtsied? I should have bowed. Like, so, I mean, I think that changes the dynamic, because it's not just like a dude who happens to be extremely handsome. It's literally a fallen angel and literally God, as far as she understands.
She still could have used a false name or figured out a way to do it without using her own name.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, but if time was of the essence, I don't know.
Yeah.
Or if Lucifer led her to believe that time was of the essence.
True. I do find it interesting, the music that he chose for to Parent Trap, the goddess and God Johnson, Spandau Ballet, and You're Too Good to Be True, which I cannot remember who the musician is for that. Again, that feels very Gen X.
Yeah.
Like a Spandau Ballet is very much like, our Sweet 16 parties and stuff like that. And then You're Too Good to Be True feels like like the throwback music they'd play at our Sweet 16 and proms and stuff like that.
It's really weird. Like, I don't know what to do with the fact that, like, to create their first meeting, which was like, I mean, God, Johnson talks about, like, in the beginning, there was nothing, and then there was her, and she was glowing with a mirror ball. I mean, he does say, have you heard of dance? Like, so, I mean, so they do acknowledge the fact that this is not, in fact, what it was like, but I don't know.
It's so, you know.
I mean, and they acknowledge that by having Linda say, "You're parent trapping the god and goddess." You know, like, yeah.
And there is the, like, the parent trapping aspect of it is also like the very childish way a kid would try something like that. You know, there is the emotional aspect of it being like cobbled together. Is that is, you know, when he's like kind of eagerly looking over
through the bottles of alcohol.
And she's like, are you sure this is about revenge? He's like, of course it is. And like the way that he's looking, it's just like, no, that's, you know, you can see that's the child of divorce who's like, maybe mommy and daddy will love each other again.
Yeah. So we didn't talk about, this is maybe a little bit fluff, so maybe we can ease our way off of this episode. But like you said before we hit record, that scene with the date between the doctor and Chloe, where Maze and Amenadiel are also there, is like so cringy that you don't rewatch it except for this. So it's really cringy and also like really confusing. Like, Amenadiel's behavior while they're all on the couch is so confusing.
I like the shape of your head.
That actually made the most sense out of everything that happened. He was like in the guy's space, you know, like took pizza off of his plate. And like in his space to like reach for the wine and like staring at, like, just like really, which I guess, I mean, Amenadiel wants Lucifer and Chloe to get together, I guess, because he knows how Lucifer feels about her. Well, and so maybe it was that kind of to like just trying to like discourage the dude, but it was really confusing to me.
Was he also like, I'm wondering if it was also because like the first thing Chloe says is this is not gonna be an orgy when she sees Amenadiel. I'm wondering if it's also like Amenadiel got the idea that like that's what Maze was trying to do, and so he's trying to scare her off because because like that he's there because he's realizing he's going to miss Maze,
right?
And so like maybe it's a jealousy over Maze thing, but yeah, it's
maybe I actually found that I like the shape of your head the least confusing because it's them both sitting there with two black shaved heads of similar complexion, like. He remarked on the fact that they have two shaved heads of similar complexion.
Yeah.
But like all of the other behavior was just like, what's going on here? Happening here? Like, what are you thinking? Why? What?
Yeah.
You know, and like in the kitchen when they sort of step away and he like takes the dishes back out of the dishwasher that Mace threw in there inappropriately. Like that, it made sense. Like he understands how dishwashers work better than Maze, but like, I don't know. It really, it just confused me.
It's not a character driven moment.
I guess that's it. Yeah. It really was about like making us as uncomfortable as possible.
And they succeeded because I had forgotten what all the dialogue was in there. Cause I've seen this episode multiple times because I really like it. And I just fast forward through that scene. I've seen that scene now twice, whereas I've seen that episode probably 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
And I get very uncomfortable with the kind of deception that Chloe is doing, particularly because this doctor has been nothing but sweet and above board and so like the way that she's using him it just also makes me very uncomfortable in a way that's not like secondhand embarrassment. It's just like ew, it feels gross. And like he says, if you just asked, I would have been able to help you. Yeah. So it's
any other fluff to take us out?
PE teacher who like witnesses this whole like the bad guy monologuing, and it's not until Lucifer says to him, "I'd take your child out of this." He's like, "I'm a father? Cool."
Yeah.
Like, observe this whole thing.
Yeah.
So we have overthunk it quite a bit. For the fluff, I would like to talk about Maze being Chloe's wingwoman in every way. Like where I love that when she shows up, she says, like, look, I'm not good with the emotional stuff, but I don't let my gal go into enemy territory alone.
Right.
You know, and like it's something I appreciate because like there are different ways of showing up for someone you care about.
Mm-hmm.
And Maze cannot show up for Chloe emotionally, but she can literally show up and help her see where her insecurity is blinding her, and help her, you know, put together a pretty good plan. Except why were they not staking out the car from the beginning?
Right.
You know, like,
Right.
You stake out the car the moment you set the plan in place, but whatever, it's a TV show. So, but yeah, that, and then the way that Maze just like enjoyed like making Chloe uncomfortable, like the pistol in the sack.
And the kiss, like when Maze like tries to give Chloe a kiss, and Chloe just like her lips
like just move. Like, stop, no, I'm not, this is not where we're going.
It's funny. All right, so I'm gonna call it.
Okay, you know, no more fluff.
Nah, I think that was a good one.
All right, that was good fluff.
I'll see you next week.
See you next week.